Ladies and gentlemen, with the summer ending, it's been hot, miserable, humid, and terrible in the DMV area. So go inside, get cool, turn on that AC, and listen to episode 24 of Primal Security Blog and Podcast, baby. Woo! All right, today we've got the normal people. We've got Andrew, Luke, Lane, myself, Zach, and we've got a special guest for you today, Dan, who's going to basically be speaking on a little bit of PenTest 101, how to get started, and some different fundamental fun things with pen testing in general. So Dan, I'll let you introduce yourself real quick.
Yay.
Hey, aren't they already listening to episode 24?
Yeah. Did I introduce it wrong?
Well,
I'm going to have to say, Zach,
Okay, whatever.
I think we should start rating Zach's intros as part of the podcast.
What's that, a 7 out of 10?
I'm going to give that a solid 5.5.
Ooh.
Thanks.
That's conservative.
You just need to put some sexy background music in post-production.
We tried that once.
Just put Nick Jonas behind me all the time. We'll be fine.
You want Nick Jonas behind you all the time?
Oh, stop it. All right, Dan, go ahead.
Cool. So, yeah, I mean, I work in the industry. I do consulting, pen testing, kind of the whole, break in, mess stuff up, and then, help try and make stuff better. And I kind of had an interesting way of getting into the industry. I mean, I don't have a degree, I don't have certifications, I just, really bust ass. So, I will stand on my tiny soapbox and give a couple of things that work for me, and hopefully that helps some other people out down the road.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Dan, for joining in today, and we'll get into that. But first of all, we're going to jump into what we normally do, and that's our news items. So, Lane, would you like to kick us off with your first news item of the day?
No, let's start with yours.
Oh my God, you guys are so.
None of us want to talk, so we're going to start with yours.
You're terrible. All right, well, fine.
Lane's is a big news item.
I'll kick it off. So, let's break the news in with my former employer,
Really?
Micros.
Oh.
Yeah. Now owned by the mighty and powerful Oracle.
Also known as a vulnerability creation company.
They don't have default credentials on anything.
So Oracle Micros is going through a breach, and probably a pretty heavy one. They're one of the hugest point of sales operating system companies in the United States and worldwide as well. They're in a lot of hotels, restaurants, all that, and stadiums as well. But essentially, Visa made a statement that they noticed a lot of the point of sales devices for Micros have unusual network activity.
So it's a good sign.
Probably some malware on their point of sale system. So Visa sent out a big thing saying if you have Micro systems installed in your restaurant, hotel, whatever, you may want to change your passwords. And
Immediately.
Oracle Micros, of course, is just sweeping this under the rug, just kind of trying to say, hey, it's okay, just change your passwords and also change any accounts that we may have for any of our staff that came and installed your Micro systems, which I used to do.
And
I've actually got a
credit card
question
numbers.
for you, because I'm not too familiar with POS software.
Sure.
So is it like firmware? Does it ever change, or like
Yes.
is it like an application on an operating system, or is it? It is.
It's basically all these point of sale systems. They communicate back to a server that is just just computers and
So it's just a networked application.
Exactly.
Okay. So
and
So it doesn't have an underlying like Windows or anything like that.
No, he's saying it does.
No,
Oh,
I mean,
it
it
does.
runs on top of Windows.
Oh, okay,
Back when
okay,
I
alright,
did it,
yeah.
it was a Windows 7 operating system.
sure.
You would go in there, you would log in, you could make the configuration changes for your menu, whatever your pricing was, and then it would push it out to all the sales,
Okay.
point
Yeah.
of sales items, the endpoints, and then when servers rang it in, it would be changed. Now, we did have different things with remote login, so I could troubleshoot issues for you on the fly. So I'm imagining that's how these bad guys would
I'm
get
sure it
in.
was always a different password on every
I'm
single
sure,
one.
right? I'm not going to go into
Set.
big details, but because I don't want to throw my former employer under the rug, but there's definitely going to be some issues ahead. Basically, Krebs has covered a very detailed article on this, so feel free to check that out. But it seems like it's going to get pretty dirty. An interesting fact that I found heavily interesting was that you've been hearing more and more hotels have been getting hit up. And a majority of the hotels that were hit actually run Micro's point of sale systems. And that includes your big ones like the Trump hotels, the Hilton, the Kimptons, Starwood, Hyatt, Marriott's a big one, but Marriott hasn't been hit, as what I know. But Marriott's huge micros.
I know that the Hampton ones have been hit several times because I've got like a Hamptons reward. And every once in a while, I get a email saying, "Hey, your stuff has been jacked," and luckily, none of my attached to it at this point.
I'm like 3 credit cards past whatever I've used on my last trip.
Well, you go to a lot of sketchy sites.
I do. And
We put this credit card information out there.
I have a specific credit
I fished you a lot.
Do you
put
make sure
you
that
put
there's
your credit card
Do
number.
you make sure there's an S after your HTTP? Because
Never.
that makes it good.
I don't like the S.
That makes it good.
Makes it too long.
But no, long story short, essentially more details will emerge as this comes along. But they're estimating this could cost micros possibly billions of dollars.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, that's a lot of money, and especially way to go, Oracle. Way to go for purchasing this company that was highly flawed, apparently. So, moving on, Lane, I'm going to you now.
All right, so I'm actually gonna pass the buck a little bit. Dan actually brought this to us right before we started talking.
No pressure, Dan.
Stealing my stories, bro.
I'm gonna let you tell it.
Cool.
I'm gonna let you tell it.
We can commiserate on it together because I think it's interesting. It's an ethical question, right? So today, Muddy Waters, which is an investment firm, released some research in conjunction with MedSec that said basically they've taken a short position on St. Jude's, which they're not super into the stock market, means they are banking that the stock is going to go down, and it's going to go down because they just dropped a bunch of ODAs in their pacemakers, which
all of their device,
which is like 40 some odd plus % of their.
It was 46% of their revenue last year. Yeah.
Right.
And
So
is that just pacemakers or like medical devices?
It's
in general?
pacemakers, defibrillators, and some other stuff. I don't know what actually do.
Series of medical.
Yeah, so I didn't even know St. Jude's did that stuff. So that was new to me, but
Interesting.
apparently like a big part of their business is making it. Yeah, well, that's what I thought they did was like the children's hospital.
Yeah.
But,
that's what we see them on TV.
Yeah.
Right, thanks. Yeah.
What's going to be interesting is the fallout after this, right? Like this story dropped today, right? And it seems at first glance that there was really no responsible disclosure process or anything like this. They didn't try and contact. It sounds like what they did at first glance is just drop these ODAs and shorted this. Brings a real interesting question as to the future monetization of vulnerabilities, right?
So I went over the Bloomberg article, and we'll include it in the notes. It seems basically what happened is MedSec found these vulnerabilities, and they went to a guy that worked for Muddy Waters, which is a brokerage or something like that. And they went to this guy and they said, "Listen, we've got information, and we'll share it with you. But the only way we'll share it with you is if we get a percentage of the profit you make off of short selling the stock." So the guy was basically like, I've got nothing to lose unless the stock actually goes up.
It sounds illegal.
It does sound illegal.
It does.
So,
it's
but
saying that
it could be
Ethical question.
unregulated. I'm sure.
I'm not talking about it.
I'm sure they
ethical,
did.
I'm talking about legal.
I'm sure they did some research before doing this because it's
Yeah.
all out in the open.
some of Wall Street stuff.
It's public. Yeah.
So St. Jude's is down 5% today, and I guess this is brand new information.
Most people
So,
probably don't know about it.
so I imagine they'll drop a little bit further, especially as the scale of that breach goes out. But holy crap!
We'll see, right? And I mean, I'm not a lawyer, and neither is anybody in this room, but like, it is an interesting question, right? Like, is it actually illegal for them to go out and say, like, here are these true things that we actually found in this company and why we don't believe in this company? And
So I would wonder if
Right.
they actually. I doubt they published the
They
vulnerabilities.
did.
They published them.
I didn't read all the way through it, but there's technical details in
Oh,
the
okay.
research paper that Muddy Waters posted, right?
And that would give it some teeth, because otherwise people could say, "Oh, that's not true."
Right.
That's
Yeah.
not
If it's
illegal."
not public,
Because well, I mean, the question is if anybody does exploit some of this stuff and somebody does
once the
get
PFC is
physically injured
available,
because of that, I mean,
that's when the real threat comes into play.
I think that's why they knew it would tank the company, and why they knew they could actually make
but
money
is
off.
somebody legally responsible for the person's health
Yeah.
if this has been irresponsibly disclosed and somebody?
I think we're in a gray space because
Yeah.
it hasn't been approached yet, so they're kind of maybe err on the side of nobody knows.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to break it down, by tomorrow. I'm guessing Troy Hunt's going to have a blog article on it because he's looking. he's the man at being in the front of all that stuff. I'd like to go through and do. I haven't done it yet, so it'll be cool after somebody does the technical analysis to say, are these actually damning vulnerabilities, or is it like super works in the lab type stuff but not weaponizable?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
That's the real question.
Is it vulnerabilities we can read data from the device, or is it vulnerabilities we can crash the device?
There's
Or,
more
Right.
more FUD in the marketplace. But,
Yeah.
you know,
I imagine that the biggest danger with these devices is probably DOS or some kind of availability issue. I imagine.
Sure.
Or just turning them off.
Exactly, taking them
Yeah.
out is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Turning
some
them up,
availability issue.
Jacking up whatever they're regulating.
Oh yeah, pacemakers. Yeah, you jack that shit up. Boom.
Or a defibrillator, ramp up the amps that go into somebody's heart and make it explode. I'm sure that wouldn't be.
what's
You've been watching too many more bad
Mortal
videos.
yeah. Regardless, though, like it's the takeaway that's cool or scary is, you know, nobody's done a technical breakdown of the actual vulns yet, but stock is still going down,
Yeah.
which is like
It's like
weird.
that
that
FUD,
it's
that
it's-
fear, uncertainty.
It
Yeah.
sounds
the
pretty
marketplace
bad.
is very susceptible to that. Is a good example.
Seeing how a company, millions, billion, whatever they are, a huge company can be taken down by a couple of days is interesting too.
Not
Potentially
even,
taken down.
yeah, and not even like the fact of the actual O days. It's just they're like, hey, we have vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
Short the stock.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm sure anybody that's short in the stock right now probably doesn't understand the vulnerabilities.
It's one thing when a breach hits a company and they definitely tank. I mean, that's understandable. Like Sony or any of these other companies that got hit, and that comes public knowledge, and everyone reports on it. But like these vulnerabilities, they're not reported on the news to everybody, and they're not like they're kind of just in the know of like certain people that follow the industry.
Yeah.
You know,
Until somebody gets
or
impacted.
someone
by it.
gives them that like
What-
whisper in the wind.
I think the idea is what is the potential impact, and that's where these guys, and they might have even known like these may not be remotely exploitable, but people are going to freak out in the beginning, and that's how we're going to make our money by
Short it
short
anyways.
selling.
Now,
Yeah.
do you think this is going to set like a precedent of people saying, "Oh, you know, we've got vulnerabilities," you know?
It's the first
Or
I've
not.
heard of it. Of people to be trying to short the stock
I mean,
and make money off the vuln
if
that
it
way.
works, and it's
It
not,
sounds like it did.
yeah, if it works and it's not illegal, then yeah, I could see people doing this over and over again.
which is weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, finding vulns and somebody contacting your broker and say, hey, let's take this company down, make money off it together. I've got vulns that can do it. That's it.
Yeah.
I bet
Interesting
you
way.
that St. Jude could sue them, right, for saying they're releasing vulnerabilities.
They need to prove it.
That impact
could-
life or
Yeah, it could essentially be hacking crimes, right? Because it's super irresponsible to just go dropping O-days all over the place
Without
under your
notifying-
name, and like
Sure.
and saying, you know, this is me and how you find me and how you sue me. And
yeah.
A lot of people will get disgruntled, and I'm trying. And the whole point on this is that a lot of times when people find things, they'll notify the vendor, the software company, whatever it may be, whoever the entity is. They'll notify them. If they don't fix it and they don't do anything about it, after a couple of months or a good series of time, that's when they get disgruntled. That's when they get mad and they release it to the public. You know, and
This day came out the gate.
yeah,
But yeah,
it
I
came
mean,
out of the gate hot shot.
even then,
That's
if you've got a documented attempting trying to reach different companies, I think, you know, we talked with Micah a few months ago. You know, he tried reaching out to one of those companies over and over again, saying, "Hey,
Strava.
you guys are putting this stuff out," and they basically blew them off. And then they were like, "Oh, we don't care what you publish."
They straight up told him, like, go ahead and publish it. We don't care.
Yeah.
cool, here you go.
He said they said the whole point was this vulnerability that you're telling us about. So go for it.
Yeah.
They wanted people to know where you were. Yeah.
Crazy, man.
Lucas, my man, you got a topic?
So I think it's moving into I think we have a shared topic that
Yeah,
we're going to talk about.
so-
If we're ready to move on to that.
Yeah. Just big conglomerate topic.
Let's roll. Let's roll like the Flintstones.
So anybody that's listening, this has probably heard about it over the past, I don't know, it's been
Week or two.
2 or 3 weeks now. Yeah. The Equation Group hack. So basically, hackers of mostly unknown origin. It's thought to be Russian, but I've been reading over the past few weeks that, or the past week actually, that may be in question. It could actually be a United States citizen.
Yeah,
I've
seen some rumors. Buzzing,
Yeah.
I've seen some rumors buzzing around that they're like faking being a foreign entity.
Yeah.
So what happened was the NSA was doing allegedly the NSA was doing some hacking. And one of their staging servers, somebody forgot to clean up their tools that were on that server, and a third party came in, got on the server, and basically took all their tools that had a lot of 0 days, a lot of documentation on how to run these apps that they've done to exploit them, just left and right. And so out of that, we've gotten a handful of Cisco ASA vulnerabilities.
A lot of router.
Yeah, a lot of router vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
We've got a handful of iOS vulnerabilities out there. I think they called that one Trident. And then there's a few others here and there. I can't remember all of them. A lot of them are actually up on Exploit DB already.
Yeah.
Two of the ones that I saw, there's Benign Certain, and the other one was Extra Bacon.
Yeah.
And actually, I think there's one called Epic Banana too. Great names.
Great names.
A
lot better than
those are, to my knowledge,
somebody's entire job.
making up those names.
Naming.
So to my knowledge, those are all focusing on the Cisco devices specifically. Extra Bacon is Cisco ASAs, and the what's the other one? Benign Certain is the old school like PIX firewalls, which I think.
I would honestly be interested in doing firewalls.
Yeah, right. It seems interesting, right?
How would they protect anything?
So they released a lot of there's a lot of technical details actually floating around out there. And you can actually go like GitHub and ExploitDB and stuff like that and download the code now. I think Cisco released a response.
So they patched, but apparently the patches don't actually fix everything. It's a mitigation for right now.
It's an interim mitigation.
So it's interesting. There's a lot of different reactions depending on how you want to tackle this issue. There's obviously the technical things, which are, if you own those devices, you now have to scramble and patch. But there's also the I've seen a lot of groups, even Apple, come out and say like, well, we told you so. Like in regards to, hey, we come here and the FBI and everybody was talking about like requiring Apple to have a back door, and
they didn't want to do it.
And they didn't want to do it, but the idea is like, well, only the good guys will use it. Well, what if the bad guys get a hold of it? And here's the argument. Well, now the bad guys have gotten a hold of these vulnerabilities, and it wasn't intentional, obviously, but it doesn't always have to be intentional.
With humans, there's error. Yeah,
exactly. I was going to say, it's human error for sure.
I mean,
somebody left that behind. They should cover their tracks and got rid of the tools. But I mean, it's a slip up. It happens. We all make mistakes.
Yeah,
someone's going to be there to find it.
And didn't something along those lines happen with Equation Group as well? They like left tools somewhere and they were trying to bid it off, and someone got access to it. Something along those lines.
So I don't think they've actually sold all of the stuff they've gotten yet.
Well, they're still taking bids on it.
Yeah,
they're still taking bids on it.
Yeah, so I'm expecting we're probably going to see over the next few weeks or months more stuff just coming out.
I'd sell to a lot of parties.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That was not Andrew McNichol who said that right there.
No, I'm just saying, if I were him, I would take private bids, and I'm only selling to you.
If you were you would never sell something like that.
I would sell it.
I'd be rich.
I'm only selling to you, Fred.
You just might end up disappeared one day.
Yeah, you might disappear. I mean, the Dread Pirate Roberts, he took people out.
Nah, use a clearinghouse.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh Jesus, I'm just gonna disappear.
So I guess this kind of follows into the line of like what not to do when you're pen testing somebody, and then one of those things is don't leave your tools behind, don't leave your footprints behind, and that's where we'll let Dan start up and talk to us about pen testing.
Don't leave back doors.
Don't backdoor your back doors.
That was all the news stuff.
Yeah,
we were trying to get that.
We
busy.
No, I mean, essentially, the only one I thought extra, just icing on the cake, this will kind of make anyone grand in the room who's a pen tester is that they're going to release PowerShell for Linux.
It's out.
Yeah, it's on GitHub in beta.
We got Linux and Windows and Windows and Linux.
Yeah, we've got Bash in Windows and we've got PowerShell and Linux.
The whole world is collapsing.
And OpenSSH is actually on.
Yes, it is. It's part of it as well.
The Windows implementation,
It's a part of the component with the PowerShell and everything. And the initial release is apparently for Ubuntu, CentOS, and Red Hat. So we'll see. I think there's going to be a lot more fun things to play with once this all kind of collaboration stuff happens. So we'll see.
Yeah, they really want PowerShell everywhere.
They really do. Cool, really do.
All right, so let's talk about career stuff, I guess, which is cool. I mean, I like to think of it in kind of like a few different stages, right? Obviously, there's the like you're not you may be listening, you're not in security right now, you may be thinking about getting into security, or change of field, something like that. Or maybe you are, but you're in a place where you want to advance, you want to do something different. Maybe you're doing audit stuff, you want to do pen testing, stuff like that. So I'm gonna take, I guess, a little bit of a broad, how I think about the different stages of that, and we can kind of break it down and get into some nuances, right? So like if you got to have some baseline of experience, right, in order to do pen testing specifically, but like you can apply this to anything, right? You have to have some baseline of experience. There's a variety of ways you can get that experience, reputation, whatever. And the absolute best way to get a job in the field is to have some type of network, right? Choose your way of building your network. We can talk about like a few. And then once obviously you get your foot in the door, then everything else spirals out of control after that, right? Like you bust ass, you do a good job, you're really passionate about what you do, you're going to do really well. So there's a lot of things involved in each of those, but so I want to step back and talk about, I guess, some different ways that you can get experience or reputation to say like, hey, I can do this pen testing thing or whatever it is you're trying to achieve to get in the door, right? Like for me, I don't have a degree, I don't have certifications. For some people, that is the thing that they use to say like, hey, like I've done this stuff, like give me a chance. I took a different route and I did some internships and I did some part-time work. I did work with like the open source communities, open source projects and stuff like that. Any of these numbers of opportunities, I think there's a lot of them. One of the absolute best ones that I've been telling like some like college kids I talk to is if you're in college right now, and you haven't heard of CCDC, Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition, you should absolutely look into that. We can talk about that some more. Super great avenue to like get hands-on experience in hacking tools, bending network environments, stuff like that. Or just go and do it on your own, right? Like you gotta be super passionate about just tearing stuff apart and learning how it works, breaking it down, build a lab at home, build your own domain. Like you don't even need to go out and do all those other, like you can walk into some place and if you're compelling enough and passionate enough, you say like, hey, like I built a whole Active Directory domain at home in my basement and like I tore it down, I know how it works. Like, do you think I could be like a junior sysadmin here? Right? Like that's a pretty compelling and passionate story. And I almost look for that more in people that I interview, the passion, than like, maybe whether they know how to code in Ruby or not, or whether they like know all of the nuances and intricacies of Python's interpreter, right? Like to me, that's not as important as like there's a baseline, right? You have to be somewhat technically competent, but you also have to be really passionate about what you do. So I think that's incredibly important and you can't replace it. So I don't know if you guys have any comments on that.
Yeah, actually, you made a comment about, you don't have a degree, you don't have certifications, and building a network is very important. I agree. I have some certs, but at the time that I got kind of started, I didn't have any certs at all, and don't have a degree either. Still don't have a degree. Never did have a degree, and hands down, if I didn't know the right people or meet the right people or interact with the right people, I would not be where I'm at. It's just genuinely a very important thing, especially if you're not taking the traditional route of going to school and getting your bachelor's and master's and all that before you start work. I know for a lot of people, that's a long-term goal. If someone said, you can't have a job until you finish your bachelor's or master's, I'd be a couple years from now before I'd be working again. So that's definitely discouraging to a lot of people.
Yeah. If you're not pen testing right now and you're not like out there doing bug bounties and like talking to other people that are involved with those programs and looking for people to learn from, like you're doing it wrong from the start. Like you absolutely have to seek out those people.
Yeah, I mean, when I got started too, I have a bachelor's degree in history, so that didn't really help me get into the technical field at all. But going back to where you're talking about interviewing people, like a lot of the times the guys I end up recommending don't necessarily meet the full skill set of the position we're hiring for, but the level of interest that they have is, or they show me that they want to learn and that they want to do the work, and that's a lot of the times is more than anything. Like I've had people work on projects with me that we've hired that have been hired to do one thing, and then just due to circumstance, we end up not being able to do that work anymore. And instead of letting these guys go, which we don't want to do, they're like, hey, I'll just figure out how to do this other part. Give me some spin up time. And then it's like, hey, why not? Now I've got another resource for something else.
Why not let go a motivated guy?
Yeah. So, I mean, motivation and the desire and willingness to learn is like way underrepresented. And it's hard. I mean, it's hard to get your foot in the door sometimes to HR, but if you do get your foot in the door and you're able to talk to someone, that desire and eagerness to learn will get you really far, I feel.
Motivation is probably a whole podcast in itself.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Yeah, going back to one of the things you said about the lab, I get this a lot. People coming up to me that are security analysts, because everybody can become a security analyst. There's like millions of jobs out there, but very few are pen testers. And they're always saying, I want to do pen testing. You made a point about labbing, and it being you got to be hands-on. And they've read about how to use a vuln scanner, they've read about Metasploit, but very few have like gone beyond MSO 8067. And I think that's a really important piece, because every time I'll say, okay, well, how many vuln hub VMs have you challenged? Like, you go down this. Very few of them, I talked to them 6 months later, very few of them have actually done any labbing. And they're just kind of waiting on the job to give them the experience.
Yeah, you don't get good at pen testing by doing lots of pen tests. Like, you get good at it by learning the fundamentals and understanding how things work, so you can apply them when you see the situation. Like, I joke with a buddy of mine, because it's I don't know. I said something to him. I'll try and give him like one of those bro high fives or whatever. He's like, man, we're not athletes. I was like, you're looking at this completely wrong. Absolutely, pen testing is a sport. Like, you have to hone your skills, and you don't use every single one of those skills on every job, right? Like, just like you don't get good at pitching major league games by pitching major league games. Like, they're throwing the ball on, in practice all the time.
It's a great analogy. I like that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And pen testing is absolutely it's definitely is. I wouldn't say it's the hardest job in InfoSec, but it's definitely a high bar. And when you look at something like, don't set the bar too high for yourself. Like, if you think that pen testing is what you want to do and you're not in InfoSec at all, start out doing sysadmin stuff. Start out doing, shoot to get your foot in the door and then step up, which is what I did. I didn't start right as a pen tester in the industry. But, I've been doing this professionally for 10 years and unprofessionally a lot longer. And there's still 1,000 things that I feel like I can learn and get better at. And you have to always have that mindset. And it's hard. A lot of people will tell me like, yeah, I'm thinking about getting into pen testing. I've been doing development and stuff like that. And, I think it might be cool. I think it might be something different. And it's an awesome experience. But if you don't have that passion for, if you can't find the solution to something, you're going to stay up until 3 a.m. to figure it out, then it's going to be hard for you to cut to the top of the field. There's a place for everybody, but it's going to be really hard to cut to the top. And, if I got to work 17-hour days, 4 days a week in order to hack into a satellite system or break into an airplane hangar, like, that really juices me up. And I get a lot of excitement out of that, but it's not for everybody.
One of the things I've always seen with the guys that I work with is, people kind of approach pen testing as like a very broad thing, but a lot of the guys that are really well respected in a team, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of good generalists out there that do like a lot of things like a mile wide and inch deep, but the guys that really get a lot of the bang for their buck have a focus. It's something that they're really passionate about. There's certain guys that will just pop into a web server. I know some of the guys here do love doing that. There's some guys that they're amazing at looking at network traffic and can
Some do the rest. Just give me the shell.
But I mean, there's so many different
internal
facets.
pivoting. So we get better.
There's so many different facets of pen
Yeah,
testing
for
that
sure.
if you can find your niche and get really good at it, you still need to know the other stuff a little bit. But find something you're really good at. Chances are you're going to have somebody on your team that once you get that foothold, you can pass it off to the next person on your team, and they can continue on with the baton.
Yeah.
I like what you said about also the 17-hour days, because a lot of people think that the pen testing is a 9-to-5 job, and you clock out when you're done, and you do your 40 hours, and you're done, and that's what you do. And yeah, that's not been my experience.
It's a lifestyle. Pen testing is a lifestyle, and I don't want to sound like the pen test junkie, right? Like there's a lot of other specializations in InfoSec that people kill it at. A lot of stuff on blue team side that are interesting jobs. Pen testing obviously is like super sexy and everybody wants to do it, but there's a lot of other interesting stuff to do too. So, I mean, explore everything. I love what I do right now, but there's a lot of options. Mm-hmm. Like reverse engineering is a whole, like you gotta know a little bit of it to be good at pen testing, but that's a whole specialization in itself. People that do just that all the time, every day.
My biggest thing is if I had to give anybody suggestions or advice, and I think this is kind of just generic, but if you're going to do pen testing, view it as like you need to go into it with other people who are pen testers as well. Like imagine it as like you're a quarterback, but you're also with 2 other quarterbacks. So you got to call the shots, you need to communicate, you need to make sure you're calling the right plays, you're making sure that you're collaborating. Because really, pen testing, what it is you're trying to find flaws and abuse features that someone tried to create. So you're basically trying to find something wrong in something that somebody made usable. So you have to be really creative. You have to think outside the box. You have to truly be the adversary. You have to try and to push beyond the normal boundaries and threshold. And it's hard. It really is, because you're trying to find a flaw in something that somebody spent so much time on and made so many revisions to make perfect. And oftentimes, because of human error, like we've said several times in this podcast, there's going to be a vulnerability or a flaw. And you're going to find it, but it's just going to take a lot of time, it's going to take a lot of collaboration, and it's going to take a lot of just experience and skill that you'll gain after each assessment you do.
Yeah. And the hardest part is calling somebody's baby ugly. Like
That's true. That's true.
You find the
Nobody
bruises.
wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear bad news. We are the bearers
They get
of bad
very
news.
offensive, right?
What about this spot right here?
And I think the unsexy part that a lot of people say, like following from that, you got to document everything you do: screenshots, videos, notes,
Timestamps. They're
timestamps.
getting to this point where they want timestamps verbatim of every single thing.
Yeah, we're bad at that too.
But yeah, I mean, so many people want documentation because
We're getting better.
Shit.
they're so defensive of their work, and they take offense to it, and it's really not. I don't think it's adversarial in the aspect of you're trying to take down somebody's baby and hurt their feelings. It's more, most of the pen tests that you go out and do are to help them improve their security posture.
Well, that's the way that we look at it, right? I don't think that's
Sure.
the way
No
the
one takes it
customer
that way.
always looks at it.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the way that the person who's paying money for the
Well, if
assessment
I
is
was a
looking at it.
developer on the opposite side of the fence, you
He's
mocked my project that I worked years on, and you found vulnerabilities, I'd probably be defensive. I get that.
Well,
I get that.
Yeah.
I totally understand.
So we can save this for the podcast on motivation. But one of the things that really messes me up about this industry sometimes with like when the customers do care and the clients that hire you like actually want security to be good, like I get super motivated about it.
Yeah.
When they don't, it's I can still have my fun. Like I'm gonna go and mess a bunch of stuff up and it's gonna be cool. And I'm gonna steal a bunch of shit and I'm gonna get out. I'm gonna toss a report over the wall, right? The client doesn't care anyways. Like I don't feel super good about it. But what messes me up thinking about it is, if we do a really good job in some of those cases, it has the potential to make the customer look really bad.
Yeah.
And so there's this weird scenario that if we do good work, great work, then we may actually be penalized by not having future work from that customer.
Because they don't want to be
bad. They don't want to look bad. They're not going to hire us because they know we're
This was prior.
to their superiors possibly, right?
Oh, well, that's
Like
true,
say
too.
a CISO hires us, right?
Sure.
CISO is not the top of the company. CISO runs a security program. They have some pen testing firm come in, or security firm, whatever. I'm not just a pen tester. I don't want to say I'm just a pen tester, but somebody come in and do a pen test, per se, and they destroy everything that this person is in charge of. And now, like, we've left them with this report, right? Makes them look awful, potentially, depending on how their superiors view it, right?
Yeah.
So
Next time, they just need to limit your rules of engagement to allow you to do very, very little.
yeah, hey, test these 4 boxes. I've seen that.
Don't exploit. Just find
I know
the
you've seen
balls.
that's why I made that joke. Anyways, so let's step back and stop talking about pen testing and talk about maybe how people build their networks, right? So if you decided, say, that pen testing or whatever job that you want to choose, how are we doing on time, by the way?
So we're fine.
Yeah.
We're real good.
Whatever job you choose, how do you find people in that industry to meet and potentially get work out of, right? And it may be an overnight thing. It may not be an overnight thing. For me, it was, working with the open source communities, open source projects and stuff. I did development and programming and things. So that was an option for me. I already mentioned CCDC, which is awesome for people that want to get into anything networking, security related. Is phenomenal.
I have a question about that. If somebody's in a school that doesn't participate in CCDC, can they still reach out and do it, or do they have to be at a school that has some sort of connection?
I think there's a process to get into it,
Okay.
right? Yeah, but a lot of the schools already participate. Like, we're in the DMV, and Anne Arundel Community College participates in it. There's pretty
Okay, it's cool.
small college, yeah.
So you could be taking like one class.
Even
You
in
can,
community college where you're not paying in top dollar, you can still get a research like that. It's awesome.
Yeah, there are regional competitions, and so like we're in the Mid Atlantic. I do red team on Mid Atlantic, and which is the kind of like offensive portion of the kind of whole game, right? So the way CCDC works is the college students play a quote blue team quote, right, where you're tasked to defend servers against a group of professional hackers, right? So the red team, and there are various other activities that happen, we get graded on as a part of it, but it's a real live hacking competition, and the kids that make it through to the like state and national competitions are getting job offers. You have the opportunity to meet a lot of other people that are really interested in the field, and to meet a lot of people that are hiring in the field, and just have mixers with these folks. So it's awesome. If anything, for a learning experience, it's really cool because a lot of people come to it not well prepared and they get smashed, and then you get beaten down, and you either like that really motivates you to step up and learn what you need to do, or you just go away and find something.
What was that thing we did about 2 years ago when we worked over at that place?
Like the cyber competition?
Yeah, what was that cyber competition? That one was really interesting too.
MD3?
Maybe.
MDC3 or something like that?
yeah.
It was like
There are others that you can participate in besides CCDC.
yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of those around, and I know we've had fun with
There's a lot of
with
bad
you.
ones.
I've
Yeah.
talked to a lot of people about that kind of stuff, and one of the main things that they say is they're afraid that they don't have the skills to even go to that thing. So CCDC, it sounds like pretty open. You don't have to have background that it's designed for students to learn. So that's something to probably take away from this. Is it's not like you can go in there kind of noob. You're going to get rocked,
You're gonna get absolutely smashed.
but that's not necessarily bad, right? They're not going to.
You should prepare. You don't have to prepare. It's just more fun for the red team. But you should prepare. Maybe that's a podcast in itself. Like how to prepare for
and learn.
CCDC. So I got 2 other podcasts queued up for you guys.
There you go.
It's coming back, people.
So that's a good one. I don't want to talk too much about that. But the reason I'm working at the firm I'm working at now is a just cold approach. Like, I think a lot of people set the bar outside of their reach. Like you said, playing with interviewing people, like you may not have all the qualifications technically that you need to apply for the job, because HR says that we have to put minimum bachelor's degree required in all the job postings, like because of whatever silly requirements, right? You may not have those, but you still might be a good candidate. Same thing goes with reaching out to folks randomly on the internet. Like, you know, it's a tenet of social engineering, right? Like, people genuinely want to help you, and if you reach out and they have time, and you have something of value to offer them, they very well may respond. And I cold approached the firm that I'm working at now. It's just like, hey, you know, I'm this guy, I do this thing, and a little bit of background, and I'm thinking about making a change. We should talk. And if the timing is right, it works out. If it's not, like, the worst thing that happens is somebody doesn't reply to you. I've met a bunch of people like that, you know.
So actually, you made a comment. I don't think I've ever applied for a job where I met the requirements of the job on paper.
Yeah.
So if you make a compelling enough case, you'll get the interview, and if you can get the interview, you can get the job.
And go outside of the channel. Like, you know, if you want to go work at a company and you have a target company that you want to work at, like, I mean, you should do the same thing you would do if you were a pen tester, researching a company. People on LinkedIn, find out who works there. Who do you know that works there? Who can you know that works there? Send them a message on LinkedIn.
People on LinkedIn as well will give many descriptions of what software they work with, what they use, like what they do in their day-to-day job. So you can look into that, fit the mold.
If
you were a sysadmin for Windows systems and they deal with they're talking about Windows and all their LinkedIn stuff, that might be a good fit for you.
Yeah, send them a phishing link and look around. You know, see what kind of documents they have.
Walk around.
And I think you'll be surprised too. Like, if they want you enough, that job posting that you don't meet the requirements for at all, change to fit your resume.
Or they'll just hire you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of the times it depends. A lot of the times it depends. Like, in the Maryland and Virginia areas, they have to meet contract requirements if you're working for the government, right?
Yeah, government's a different story.
But private companies, it's a little bit easier.
Government proper, not government contracting.
Yeah.
Government proper is a different story.
Yeah.
So, if you're in college right now and you want to get in the field, Dan mentioned checking out networking events, one of them being CCDC, a lot of good opportunities there. Building a lab, building your own Active Directory environment, playing around with Windows, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else that they could do, you would suggest, Dan?
If you're building stuff and hacking on tools, find the people that make the tools, find people involved with the tools, get involved with the community somehow. Go to conferences, if there's conferences near you. They're not all super expensive conferences. Go to a B-Sides or something where you're going to meet some people.
Show up to NAPSEC.
Yeah, show up to, like, look on Meetup, right? Like, go on meetup.com and find InfoSec groups, hacking groups around you. There's a lot of them. That is the absolute best thing that you can do, is to know somebody, and hopefully they're going to give you similar advice, right?
Yeah. So breaking out of that shell and not being like
the introvert that we know you are.
That's afraid to, because when I was a student, I didn't have a lot of direction. When I was getting started, I was like, I want to do something, don't know where to go. These are some places to start, but also don't be afraid to go there and start talking to people and saying, I don't know where to go. It looks like you do. You look like you know what you're doing. How can you help me? Because most people you meet in the industry, like Dan was saying, want to help you.
So I see this, like, especially with people that are fresh in the industry, is this kind of like imposter syndrome, and I've gone through it as well. And I think you kind of feel this when you're outside the industry too, is the, like, I don't belong. I don't know how to belong. If I were there, I feel like I'd be out of place. Maybe somebody would see through me and see that, like, I don't know what I'm doing or whatever, right? But for people that are in the industry and feel like that, like, I think they just don't understand that it's like, you don't have to know the answer to everything and be the expert for everything. Like, to be a good consultant is having the skills and resources to find the answers, not necessarily knowing the answers off the top of your head. And you have to feel this, like, you can't be intimidated if you want to get into the industry either. It's going to hold you back forever. Like, you have to, like, you just need to jump in and go meet people.
Yeah, dive into the unknown. Yeah, fake it till you make it.
Yeah, and the worst thing that's going to happen is they don't like you, and who cares? Right?
They're always burning their house down.
You're going to find somebody else.
Ooh. Yeah.
Did you just say burn the house down?
No.
Stop watching.
Find somebody else.
We take it to 10, guys.
We always take it to a 10 here at Primal Security.
We're at a 1 or a 10.
So, do we know when we started the podcast? How
We should probably start wrapping it up.
I don't know. It's
I had another question for Dan.
been a
But
Go
long
for
Yeah,
well.
we
Go
can-
for. I mean,
Last-
I'm
last-
gonna-
Not an hour yet. I
We
know
can
that.
save
Last
the
question and we're
how
done.
to advance and continue getting better in your career and motivate yourself for next time.
yeah,
Last
we can.
question.
I have a quick. This is not a quick question. I have a question for Dan. So, real quick.
make
in a-
it
in a-
quick.
in a
Super quick.
Hey,
I'll make it as quick as you want.
Hey, I can edit out like the past 5 minutes. So
One of the things I think would be interesting to people that are, hey, I want to become a pen tester, I want to become pen testers, give them a little bit of like a 60-second, whatever, 2-minute, whatever rundown of what pen testing looked like from your perspective. You already hit on the fact it's not a 9 to 5, it's 17 hours, and just give us a rundown of like, you show up on Monday doing your pen test. What does that look like to you?
Sure.
Where's some of your
So less generally and more specifically, and again is as a consultant, you kind of are multidisciplined, right? Like if you label yourself just as a pen tester, I think you're failing from the beginning because there's so many different things that you can do, help security get better in general. So although I would say I feel like I'm an expert in pen testing, it's not the only thing that I do, and that would be a failure. I'd feel like I failed. But the pen testing specifically, so a company wants you to come in, assess vulnerabilities, try and get into as much stuff as you can, try and prove as much impact as you can. You get in on one of those. It depends on what you're looking at. A company from the outside, let's say, right? So you want to go and I sit down. I want to start researching and find everything I need to know about this company. Can I find their staff on LinkedIn? Can I find them in, lead aggregating software, people that I can target that work there? I want to look at their whole external landscape. How many servers does this company have on the internet? What types of services do they have? Do they have services that are single factor, stuff that I'm easily going to be able to brute force into? Do they have things that are likely going to be vulnerable, right? Like ancient application written in PHP, like that's an easy win. Do they have a Cisco ASA that's not updated?
There you go. They probably do now.
Do they have outdated
Right.
WordPress?
You gotta-
outdated Drupal? Yeah.
You got to always be looking for the new tips and tricks and the things that people aren't using. We got a couple that are people are still getting hip to. But I like it. It completely depends on what you're going to take, what path you're going to take. It's kind of an art form in that way, which I appreciate a lot. Is you have to kind of adapt, overcome, and research and find new things on every job. A lot of them boil down to taking that kind of open source intelligence and brute forcing, try some simple passwords with your potential users against webmails or whatever interfaces they have. If they're old school, got a single factor VPN, which there's Fortune 500s that got single factor VPNs. It's probably going to get you in, and then start spidering around on the inside. And you gotta find how to get some good stuff. Like one of my core tenets I think is trying to really find and my firm I work at really kind of embodies this vision. Like you got to look for stuff that's important, like to show impact, right? And you got to look for multiple paths. It doesn't do much value. Like I feel like we're one of the better groups that does red teaming, like proper red teaming, not like we call it a red team, but we just sent a fish and like that was it. But like full scope, we're trying to find multiple ways in. We're trying to find paths to the actual sensitive data, not just getting domain admin like privileges, right? Because that's one thing, but can you actually get the stuff that damages the business? And then how do you protect that? And then what were the multiple paths that can get to that, right? Because one of the biggest like rebuttals I hear against pen testing / red teaming, which are not the same thing, but specifically red teaming is, okay, well, you guys are probably going to find one way, right? Like at least, like what value does that give me, right?
You know we have more.
Yeah, it's not just about the one way. Really got to find multiple ways to deliver value, and then you have to do it more than once. get better. And a lot of people don't understand this, is it's not just like a one and done. You have to do it over and over and over again. And the rebuttal is like, well, how many do I need to do, right? Like, how many red team, how many pen tests do I have to have until I'm secure? It's like, well, I don't know.
How often do you update your servers? How often do you change things in your?
How much do you like cheeseburgers, right? Like,
Exactly.
So how many times you got to go to the gym?
Exactly. How many times do you eat a cheeseburger and then think about it to go to the gym?
It's tough to answer that, right? So we're always kind of dealing with it, and I completely spun off the topic of your question, Andrew. But the real short version answer of what does your average day as a pen tester look like is there's no real average day, which is why I love it.
Yes, that's actually the point. The point he made, and I think it's important, is what he didn't say. A lot of people think the pen testing is they run the Nessus scanner, they have like this A, B, C, I'm done mentality. And as what Dan was talking about is there's no direct way. Every time he goes in, it's different, and he's not just kicking off a vuln scan, and he's not just following this step, and he's done, which I think makes pen testing hard because there's not always an answer. Here's how you do this. You can't go look it up online. You have to be creative and like figure it out. So that's I think exactly what Dan just said. I think that's good. It's good.
There is hypothetically, and like there are lists of, like, let's say we wrote down all of the possible like attack paths from whatever sources, MITRE and Threat Intel or whatever you want to use to make that list and say, all right, we could go through all of these potential initial compromising vectors, and then we could go and say, like, all right, well, was that detected? Was it blocked? Was it successful? Okay, well, so we know that those worked, and then like that's part of our output. But the actual level of effort to do all of that is usually way higher than somebody wants to have you come in and do. So, we have to go path of least resistance a lot of times. We find a lot of those paths. We don't necessarily find all of them every single time because it's limited by time and budget, but
of course.
Yeah.
And you got to take that risk-based approach where you're looking for those, like you said, those paths of least resistance that you identify from OSCENT and your different reconnaissance techniques, and trying to go in from there. And you may neglect something else that's completely vulnerable, but
you don't have time.
You're constrained time. You are. I mean,
but we'll get it next time.
Yeah, exactly.
The other things will hopefully get patched, right? The attacker's going to do the same thing.
Or reconfigured, exactly. So that's what you hope. So awesome. Well, thank you, Dan. I really appreciate your time. And thanks, everyone, for attending this podcast. And we'll see you next month in September. Hopefully be a little bit cooler. And y'all have a great month ahead of you. Thanks for tuning in. Take care.
Great outro, Zach.
Yeah,
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.